Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back over 5,000 years to ancient Sumer, the world's first civilization, where cities rose from the desert and the ruling class claimed to be descendants of gods from the sky. But we're not here for the glory of invention or the birth of writing. We're here to experience what life was really like under the rule of the Anunnaki, or rather, under kings who claimed divine descent and used that power to control everything. If you enjoy these deep dives into history's uncomfortable truths, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. I'm curious, where are you watching from right now? And what time is it where you are? Let me know in the comments. Now, dim those lights if you can, turn on a fan for some white noise, and settle in. We're about to discover why you absolutely wouldn't survive a single day in ancient Sumer during the age of the god kings. You wake to the sound of a bronze gong echoing across the city. It's still dark, but that doesn't matter. The temple has decided it's time to begin the day, and the temple's word is absolute. You're lying on a reed mat in a tiny mud brick house, one room shared with 6 other people from your extended family. The air is thick and hot, even before sunrise. There's no ventilation except a small opening near the ceiling. You can already feel sweat forming on your skin. Your back aches from the thin mat, and your stomach is hollow. Yesterday's ration of barley was barely enough to quiet the hunger. Today won't be any different. You sit up carefully, trying not to wake the others, though everyone is already stirring. Sleep is a luxury no one really gets here. Your father is coughing again, that wet, rattling sound that's been getting worse for weeks. There's no doctor for people like you. Healers serve the temple and the palace. Everyone else just endures. You reach for the clay water jug in the corner. It's nearly empty. That means someone has to make the walk to the canal before the day's work begins. That someone is usually you. You grab the jug and head for the doorway, stepping out into the pre-dawn darkness of ancient Ur. The street is narrow, barely wide enough for 2 people to pass. Mud brick houses press close on both sides, their walls crumbling in places where the last rain washed away the clay. The city smells like dust, smoke, and human waste. There's no sewage system here, just pits and ditches that overflow when it rains. You walk quickly, bare feet moving over the packed dirt path. Other people are emerging from their homes, all with the same tired, resigned expressions. Everyone knows what today holds: work, heat, exhaustion. And above it all, the looming presence of the temple. You can see the ziggurat from here. It dominates the skyline, a massive stepped pyramid of brick rising into the sky like a mountain built by human hands. They say it reaches toward heaven, where the Anunnaki dwell, where the gods live who gave birth to the king. You've heard the stories your whole life. How the great Anunnaki came from the stars, how they created humans to serve them, how the king carries their divine blood. Whether you believe it doesn't matter. The priests believe it, the soldiers believe it, and their belief is enforced with clubs and blades. The canal is already crowded when you arrive. Dozens of people are filling jugs, washing clothes, trying to get what they need before the sun turns the day into an oven. The water is brown and murky. You can see things floating in it, debris, waste, who knows what else, but it's all you have. The Euphrates River feeds these canals, and the canals feed the city. You dip your jug in carefully, trying to avoid the worst of the filth. The water is warm and tastes like earth, but you'll drink it anyway. Everyone does, and everyone gets sick sometimes. That's just life. On the way back, you pass a group of temple guards. They're wearing leather armor and carrying copper-tipped spears. They don't look at you. To them, you're less than nothing, just another body in the crowd, but you keep your head down anyway. Drawing attention is dangerous. Last month, a man was accused of disrespecting a temple official. They took him to the square and beat him in front of everyone. He didn't survive. No one protested. No one dared. The priests speak for the gods, and the gods demand respect. Absolute, unquestioning respect. Back home, you find your family already preparing for the day. Your mother is grinding barley between two stones, the same motion she makes every morning, arms moving in steady rhythm. Your younger sister is trying to help, but she's weak from hunger. She's 7 years old and already looks gaunt. Your father is attempting to stand, but the coughing fit forces him back down. He waves you off when you move to help. Pride is one of the few things people here have left. You set the water jug down and take the grinding stones from your mother. She doesn't argue. Everyone carries the weight they can. Breakfast is a thin barley porridge mixed with water. No honey, no fruit, no meat. Those are for the temple officials and the wealthy merchants. You get grain, always grain. Barley and wheat, sometimes lentils, if you're lucky. The porridge is bland and fills your stomach without really satisfying. But it's fuel. It'll keep you moving through the morning. You eat quickly, knowing you need to reach the work site before the overseers start marking names. Being late means punishment. Being absent means worse. The system here is simple. You work or you suffer. The sun is rising now, turning the sky a burning orange. Within an hour, it'll be unbearable. You join the stream of workers heading toward the temple district. Hundreds of people, all moving in the same direction, all carrying the same exhausted resignation. You're headed to the ziggurat construction site. For the past 3 months, you've been conscripted to haul bricks. It's not a choice. Every household must provide laborers for temple projects. The priests call it sacred duty. You call it what it is, forced labor. The construction site is massive. Thousands of workers are already there, moving like ants across the rising structure. The ziggurat is being expanded another level, another platform, reaching even higher toward the heavens where the Anunnaki supposedly dwell. Overseers stand on elevated platforms, watching everything. They carry staffs and whips. You've seen both used, the staffs for pointing, directing the endless stream of workers, the whips for those who slow down, who stumble, who show any sign of weakness. You pick up your first brick of the day. It's heavy and rough, already hot from the sun. This is your life now. The bricks are made from mud and straw, dried in the sun until they're hard as stone. Each one weighs as much as a small child. You carry them up the ramp to where the builders are laying the next level. The ramp is steep and narrow. People are moving up and down constantly. A human chain of suffering. Your shoulders ache before the first hour is done. Your hands are already raw. You've developed calluses, but they crack and bleed anyway. There's no stopping for injuries. You work through the pain or you get replaced. And being replaced means losing your ration. Losing your ration means your family starves. By mid-morning, the heat is crushing. The Mesopotamian sun is merciless, turning the air into something thick and heavy. There's no shade on the ziggurat. You're exposed completely, sweat pouring off your body, your tunic soaked through. The overseers occasionally allow water breaks, but they're brief and rationed. You get a few sips from a communal jug, just enough to keep you from collapsing. The man next to you isn't so lucky. He stumbles, drops his brick, falls to his knees. An overseer is there immediately, shouting. The man tries to stand, but can't. He's dragged to the side. You don't see what happens next. You don't want to. Around noon, a horn sounds. It's time for the midday rest, but it's not generous. 30 minutes to eat, drink, and recover before work resumes. You find a sliver of shade against the ziggurat's base and collapse. Your legs are trembling. Your back feels like it's made of broken pottery. Other workers sit nearby, too exhausted to speak. Someone passes around flatbread and dried fish, the midday ration provided by the temple. It's not much, but you eat every crumb. Calories are survival. Strength is survival. You have no other currency here. During the break, you overhear two workers talking in low voices. They're discussing a rumor that the king has demanded an even larger workforce for a new temple complex. That means more conscription, longer hours, fewer men left to tend the fields. It means harder times ahead. One of the workers suggests resistance. The other laughs bitterly. Resist what? The gods? The king is Anunnaki born, they say. His bloodline descends from the sky. To resist him is to resist the divine order, and the divine order is absolute. You say nothing. Even listening to such talk is dangerous. The afternoon is worse than the morning. The heat intensifies until every breath feels like inhaling fire. You're dizzy, disoriented, moving on pure instinct. Brick after brick, step after step, up and down the ramp. Time loses meaning. There's only the weight in your hands and the pain in your body. Around you, workers are starting to falter. An older man collapses completely, unconscious, before he hits the ground. The overseers don't call for help. They just gesture for his body to be removed and wave the next worker forward. The message is clear. You're replaceable. Everyone is replaceable. Finally, as the sun begins its descent, the horns sound again. Work is done for the day. You're released, but you barely have the strength to walk. Your body feels like it's been beaten with clubs. Every muscle screams. Your hands are torn and bloody. But you're alive. You made it through another day. You join the mass of workers trudging back toward the residential districts. No one speaks. Everyone is too exhausted. You're all thinking the same thing. Tomorrow, you have to do this again. And the day after, and the day after that, for as long as the temple requires. On the way home, you pass through the temple district. This is where the elite live: priests, scribes, high officials. Their homes are larger, made of better brick, with courtyards and gardens. You can see palm trees growing inside their walls and smell cooking meat. The contrast is staggering. They live in comfort while you can barely survive, and they justify it with theology. They are closer to the gods, they say. Their work is sacred. Your work is simply necessary. You are the hands that build their paradise. They are the minds that commune with heaven. When you finally reach home, you find your father worse than before. The coughing has turned to wheezing, and there's blood on the cloth he's holding to his mouth. Your mother's face is tight with worry, but she says nothing. What can she say? There's no medicine. No healer will come. Your father will either recover or he won't. That's the brutal arithmetic of life here. People die all the time. Disease, injury, exhaustion, heat, any of these can kill you. And when you die, someone else takes your place. The system doesn't stop. It can't stop. Too many people depend on it, even as it destroys them. Dinner is the same as breakfast: barley, porridge, and water. Your mother adds a few onions this time, which makes it slightly less bland. You eat in silence, too tired to talk. Your sister falls asleep before finishing her portion. Your mother covers her with a thin blanket and returns to grinding grain for tomorrow. There's always work to be done. Even rest isn't really rest. It's just a different kind of labour. You help clean the clay pots, fetch more water, repair a crack in the wall where the mud has crumbled. By the time you lie down on your mat, exhaustion has turned your body into lead. Sleep comes quickly, but it's not peaceful. You dream of bricks and ramps, of overseers shouting, of the sun beating down like a hammer. You dream of the ziggurat growing taller and taller, reaching impossible heights, and you're climbing forever, carrying weight that increases with every step. You wake in the darkness, disoriented and sweating. The gong hasn't sounded yet. You have maybe an hour before the day begins again. You try to fall back asleep but can't. Your body aches too much. Your mind won't quiet. So you lie there, listening to your father cough, and wait for the inevitable sound of the bronze gong. The next day is the same, and the day after that, and the day after that. This is your life now. This is everyone's life. The pattern is unbreakable. You work because you must. You survive because the alternative is death. And above it all, the ziggurat rises higher, a monument to gods you've never seen, built by hands that will never be remembered. The priests say you're building a stairway to heaven, but it feels more like you're building a tomb. Your tomb. Everyone's tomb. A massive structure of human suffering, justified by mythology and enforced by violence. On the seventh day, something different happens. A priest arrives at the worksite, accompanied by armed guards. He's dressed in fine linen robes, with jewelry of gold and lapis lazuli. He looks well fed, clean, completely untouched by the suffering around him. He announces that the king requires additional labourers for a new project, a temple to Enlil, the god of air and storms. More workers will be conscripted, more families will send their sons and fathers to the building sites. The priest frames it as an honour, a sacred duty. But you see the fear in people's faces. They know what it means. More work, less food, higher chances of death. That evening, your family gathers to discuss the announcement. Your father can barely sit up now, so he won't be conscripted. That means you'll have to carry the burden for both of you. Your mother suggests borrowing grain from a neighbour, but you all know how that ends. Debt in Sumer is a trap. Once you owe something, the interest compounds. People become debt servants, working for years to pay off what they borrowed. Sometimes generations are trapped in service. The system is designed this way. The temple profits from suffering. Debt is just another form of control. The next morning, you're assigned to a different site. This one is even more brutal. You're digging a foundation trench for the new temple, hauling dirt and stone in baskets. The trench is deep and the walls are unstable. Twice, sections collapse, burying workers. The overseers call for more diggers to clear the debris and recover the bodies. Then work continues. No pause. No ceremony, just a brief acknowledgement that someone died and now someone else must take their place. You watch this happen and understand that your life has exactly as much value. None. During one of the rare breaks, you strike up a conversation with an older worker. He's been conscripted for temple projects for over 30 years. He tells you about the old days before the current king, when the god kings were slightly less demanding. But even then, he says, life was hard. The Anunnaki theology has always justified this system. The gods created humans to serve. The king is divine. The priests interpret divine will. And divine will always seems to demand more temples, more monuments, more demonstrations of power. You ask him if anyone has ever challenged this. He just shakes his head. Those who challenge don't last long. One afternoon, a fight breaks out between two workers. They're arguing over a water ration one claims the other took more than his share. It escalates quickly, both men shoving and shouting. An overseer arrives within moments, staff in hand. He doesn't ask questions. He just strikes both men across the backs, knocking them to the ground. Then he announces to everyone watching, theft is punished by the loss of a hand. Arguing with authority is punished by beating. Fighting on temple grounds is punished by death. The message is clear. The two men are dragged away. You never see them again. No one asks what happened. Everyone already knows. That evening, you learn that your family's grain ration has been reduced. The temple is diverting more resources to the royal household. There's a festival coming, a celebration of the king's divine bloodline. The Anunnaki must be honored with feasts and offerings. That means less for everyone else. Your mother cries quietly when she thinks no one is watching. Your sister is getting thinner. Your father is fading. You feel a rage building inside you, but it has nowhere to go. You can't fight the temple. You can't challenge the priests. You can't resist the God King. All you can do is endure. The festival arrives 3 days later. You're not allowed to attend, only citizens of good standing, wealthy merchants, and temple officials. But you can hear it from the work site. Drums and flutes, the sound of hundreds of voices chanting hymns to the Anunnaki. The smell of roasting meat drifts over the city, making your stomach twist with hunger. They're feasting while you starve. They're celebrating divine favor while you dig in the dirt. The priests would call this justice, the natural order, the gods above, the servants below. But it feels like cruelty, systematic, deliberate cruelty, wrapped in religious language. After the festival, work intensifies. The king has been pleased with the progress, the overseers announce, and wants the temple completed even faster. That means longer hours, fewer breaks, harder quotas. You're working from dawn until well after dark now, stumbling home in complete darkness. Your body is breaking down. Your hands are infected from the constant abrasion. Your back spasms with every movement. You can't remember the last time you didn't feel pain. This is what it means to live in the cradle of civilization. This is the cost of humanity's first cities. Someone has to build them. And that someone is always the powerless. One day, you witness something that changes your understanding of this place. A man collapses at the worksite, clearly suffering from heat exhaustion. Instead of helping him, an overseer checks a clay tablet, the record of his work history. The man has been falling behind on his quotas. The overseer declares him unfit for temple service and orders him removed. You assume he'll be taken home, allowed to recover. But someone whispers to you later. Unfit workers are sent to the mines outside the city, the copper and silver mines that feed the temple's wealth. No one returns from the mines. It's a death sentence disguised as reassignment. That night, you can't sleep. You keep thinking about the man, about the mines, about how easily you could end up there. Your father is dying. Your family is starving. You're working yourself to death building monuments to gods you're not sure exist. And if you complain, if you slow down, if you show any weakness, you'll be discarded. The system is perfect in its cruelty. It gives you just enough to survive, but never enough to escape. It works you to the edge of breaking, then replaces you when you finally snap. And all of it is justified by mythology. The Anunnaki demand it. The divine order requires it. The king's bloodline proves it. The next morning, your father doesn't wake up. He died sometime in the night, quietly, without ceremony. Your mother is too shocked to cry. Your sister doesn't understand. You feel numb. Not sad exactly, just tired. So deeply, impossibly tired. You help your mother wrap his body in the thin blanket. There's no money for a proper burial, so you'll take him to the communal pit outside the city walls. That's where the poor go. No markers, no rituals. Just a hole in the ground where bodies are thrown and covered with dirt. Your father worked his entire life. And this is what he gets. You take the body to the pit at dawn, before work begins. The smell is overwhelming decay and dust and something else you can't identify. There are other families there, other wrapped bodies. No one speaks. You lower your father into the pit, and watch as workers shovel dirt over him. Your mother whispers a prayer to Enlil, asking for his spirit to find peace. But you feel nothing. No connection to the gods, no sense of divine presence, just emptiness. Your father is gone, and nothing has changed. The temple still stands. The king still rules. The work still waits. Without your father, the burden falls entirely on you now. You're the only worker in the family, which means you must produce enough to earn rations for 3 people. It's impossible. You try to work faster, to carry more, to stay later, but your body is already at its limit. You start skipping meals, giving your portions to your mother and sister. You tell yourself it's temporary, just until you can figure something out. But you know there's nothing to figure out. This is the trap. This is how the system works. It squeezes everything from you until there's nothing left. 2 weeks after your father's death, your mother makes a decision. She'll work as a servant in a merchant's household. It's not a great option, the work is hard and the pay is minimal, but it'll bring in a little extra grain. She leaves before dawn and returns after dark. Your sister is left alone during the day. She's too young to work, too old to need constant care. She spends her days sitting in the hothouse, waiting. When you see her in the evenings, she looks more hollow every time. You're all disappearing, piece by piece, consumed by a system that doesn't care if you live or die. One afternoon, the impossible happens. An official from the temple arrives at the work site and announces a day of rest. The king has decreed it in honor of some celestial event, an alignment of stars that the priests interpret as a message from the Anunnaki. You're suspicious at first. Nothing in Sumer comes without a price. But when the next morning arrives and no one forces you to work, you realize it's real. One day, one single day without labor. You spend it sleeping. Just sleeping. Your body is so starved for rest that you can't do anything else. It's the closest thing to relief you've felt in months. But the day off has a cost, as you suspected. The next week, quotas are increased to make up for lost time. You're expected to carry more bricks, dig deeper trenches, work longer hours. The day of rest wasn't a gift. It was a loan, and now you're paying it back with interest. This is how the temple maintains control. They give you just enough hope to keep you compliant, then take it back twice as hard. You learn quickly. Never trust apparent kindness from those in power. It's always a trap, always an angle, always a way to extract more from you. Around this time, you start noticing something disturbing. Children are appearing at the work sites. Not many, but enough to be noticeable. 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, carrying small baskets of dirt, fetching water for the overseers. The temple has started conscripting families' children to supplement the adult workforce. Your sister is still too young, but she won't be for long. The thought makes you sick. She's already suffering enough. The idea of her here, exposed to this brutality, working until her small body breaks, it's too much. But what can you do? The temple's word is law. The king's demand is absolute. One evening, you're walking home when you see a public punishment taking place in the square. A man is bound to a post, and a priest is reading his crimes from a clay tablet. He stole food from a temple storehouse. The punishment is severe, 20 strikes with a rod. You want to look away, but everyone is required to watch. It's a lesson, the priest explains. The gods do not tolerate theft from sacred spaces. The beating is brutal and methodical. By the end, the man can barely stand. He's released and collapses immediately. No one helps him. No one dares. You walk away feeling sick, knowing that hunger drove him to steal and that punishment won't stop the hunger. The next day at the worksite, you notice the man who was beaten. He's here, working, barely able to move. But he has no choice. Missing work means losing rations, which means his family starves. So he works through the pain, wincing with every movement. You want to feel anger at the system that forces this, but you mostly just feel tired, exhausted, worn down to nothing. The fight has been beaten out of you, just as it's been beaten out of everyone here. You're all just surviving, enduring, waiting for it to be over, one way or another. Months pass. The new temple is rising from the ground, taking shape. You've been working on it for so long that you can't remember a time before it. Your life has become an endless cycle. Wake, work, eat, sleep, repeat. Your mother is aging rapidly under the strain. Your sister is thin and quiet. You're holding the family together by sheer will, but you can feel that will fraying. Every day it gets harder to get up, harder to lift the bricks, harder to believe that any of this matters. The temple will be completed eventually. And then what? Another temple, another monument, another demonstration of divine power built on human suffering. One afternoon, something breaks inside you. You're carrying a brick up the ramp when your legs simply give out. You collapse, the brick falling from your hands and tumbling down the slope. An overseer is there immediately, shouting, raising his staff. You expect the strike. You almost welcome it. But instead, he looks at you closely, sees the exhaustion, the trembling, the complete depletion. He doesn't hit you. He just marks something on his tablet and walks away. You realize with cold certainty you've been evaluated and found deficient. You're being measured for replacement or reassignment. Your time here is running out. That night, you tell your mother what happened. She understands immediately. She's seen it before workers who reach their limit and are removed from service. Sometimes they're simply released, sent home to recover. More often, they're sent to other projects. The mines, the quarries, places where life expectancy is measured in months, not years. Your mother suggests the only option left: indentured service. You could sell yourself to a wealthy household for a period of years. In exchange, your family would receive grain and protection. It's slavery in everything but name, but it might keep your sister alive. The decision tears at you. Your freedom, what little freedom you have in exchange for your family's survival, it's not really a choice. It's just another form of coercion disguised as option. But you agree. Your mother arranges a meeting with a merchant who's looking for household workers. You're young enough, strong enough despite the exhaustion. The merchant agrees to a 5-year term. In exchange, your mother and sister will receive regular rations and a place to live in his compound. You'll serve in his household, doing whatever tasks he assigns. You sign the contract with a mark, since you can't write. The clay tablet is baked and filed with the temple. Your property now. The transition happens quickly. You're taken to the merchant's home, a large compound with multiple buildings, gardens, even a small fountain. It's shocking after the poverty you've known. You're given new clothes, a place to sleep, regular meals, but you're also given a copper collar that marks you as bonded labour. You can't leave the compound without permission. You can't refuse any task. For 5 years, you belong to this man. He can work you, discipline you, use you, however he sees fit. The only difference between this and the work sites is the quality of the prison. The chains are still there, they're just better hidden. Your tasks are varied. You work in the merchant's garden, tend his livestock, carry goods to market. It's hard work, but it's not the killing brutality of the temple sites. You get enough food. You're not beaten regularly. In some ways, it's better, but in others, it's worse. At least at the work sites, you were surrounded by others suffering the same fate. Here, you're isolated. The merchant's family treats you like furniture present, but not human. You're not allowed to speak unless spoken to. You're not allowed to eat with them or sit in their presence. You're reminded constantly that you're less than they are. It's a different kind of torture. The merchant worships the Anunnaki with particular fervour. He has a small shrine in his home, and every morning he makes offerings to Enki, god of wisdom and water. He prays for prosperity, for divine favour, for the gods to continue blessing his ventures. You're required to attend these prayers, kneeling behind him in silence. You watch him prostrate himself before a clay statue, and you wonder what he's really praying for. More wealth? More power? The prayers always seem to come down to the same thing. Give me more. The gods, it seems, exist primarily to legitimize greed. One day, the merchant hosts a gathering of other wealthy men. You're serving them food and drink while they discuss business. They talk about trade routes, about temple contracts, about how to maximize profits from the grain harvest. They talk about workers the way you'd talk about livestock as resources to be managed and exploited. One man brags about how he reduced wages at his workshop and increased output. Another discusses replacing older workers with younger ones because they're cheaper and more productive. You're standing right there, holding a tray, and they don't even lower their voices. You're so beneath them that they don't consider you capable of understanding. Or perhaps they just don't care. During the gathering, you learn something that shakes you. The merchant mentions that the new temple is nearly complete, and the king is already planning the next project. An even larger ziggurat, taller than any that have come before. It'll require thousands of workers, conscripted from across the city-state. The men at the table discuss this like it's an investment opportunity. More workers means more demand for food, tools, materials. They're excited. They're calculating profits. They're planning to benefit from the suffering of thousands. And they're doing it while drinking imported wine and eating roasted meat. The disconnect is staggering. That night, you're allowed to visit your mother and sister in their quarters. They're living in a small room in the merchant's compound, just big enough for 2 sleeping mats. Your sister runs to you when you arrive, wrapping her thin arms around you. She's still so small, still so fragile, but she's alive. That's something. Your mother thanks you quietly. She knows what you've sacrificed. She knows what it costs, but she also knows there was no other choice. This is survival in ancient Sumer. You trade pieces of yourself for the chance to see another day, and you hope those pieces add up to something that matters. The years pass slowly. Your bond period stretches out like a long, grey road with no visible end. You work, you eat, you sleep. The merchant is not particularly cruel by Sumerian standards, which means he only beats you when he feels you've failed at a task. The rest of the time, you're just ignored. You watch seasons change, watch the city grow, watch new temples and palaces rise from the dust. The ziggurat the merchant's friends discussed is indeed being built. You can see workers streaming toward it every morning, and you're grateful you're not among them. Your prison is more comfortable than theirs, but it's still a prison. In your 3rd year of service, something changes. The merchant's wife falls ill. She's feverish and weak, unable to leave her bed. The merchant brings in a priest healer from the temple. You're present when the priest examines her, chanting prayers to Ninisina, goddess of healing. He prescribes herbs and amulets, speaks of divine displeasure and the need for proper offerings. The merchant pays a fortune in silver for these remedies. But you notice the priest doesn't actually do much healing. Mostly, he just collects payment and promises divine favour. The wife eventually recovers, but you suspect it has nothing to do with the priest. Bodies heal or they don't. The gods don't seem to intervene. Around this time, Rumors begin spreading through the city. There's unrest in the countryside. Farmers are struggling with a poor harvest, and tax collectors are being met with resistance. The temple is demanding its usual tribute, but the farmers don't have enough to give and still feed their families. Some villages have refused to pay. The merchant and his friends discuss this with concern. Not concern for the farmers, but for their own profits. If the farmers rebel, it disrupts trade. If trade is disrupted, wealth is threatened. The solution, they agree, is force. The king will send troops to extract the tribute by violence. Order must be maintained. The troops are indeed sent. You hear about it days later from other servants. Entire villages were ransacked. Farmers who resisted were killed or enslaved. The tribute was collected by force, and additional punishment was imposed as a lesson. The merchant seems satisfied with this outcome. The divine order has been preserved, he says. The Anunnaki demand tribute, and tribute must be given. You listen to him say this and realize that the mythology is just a tool, a way to justify any action, no matter how cruel. The gods want it, therefore it's right. It's a perfect system of control, impervious to moral argument. In your 4th year, you're assigned a new task. The merchant has invested in a small workshop where craftsmen produce clay tablets and cylinder seals. You're to help manage the workers there, mostly bonded labourers like yourself. It's the first time you've had any authority, and it feels strange. You're now responsible for enforcing the same system that's been crushing you. You try to be fair, to treat the workers with dignity. But the merchant expects productivity. He expects discipline. And when productivity falls, he expects you to correct it, with punishment if necessary. You're being turned into the thing you hate, and you don't know how to resist it. One of the workshop labourers, a young man named Enlil Nasir, starts confiding in you. He's been bonded for 2 years and has 3 more to go. He talks about his family, about his dreams of freedom, about his hatred for the system that trapped him. You listen, saying little. You recognize yourself in him, the anger, the helplessness, the desperate hope that things might somehow change. But you also know better now. Things don't change. Not here, not in Sumer. The system is too old, too entrenched, too thoroughly justified by theology. All you can do is survive within it. Trying to fight it just gets you destroyed. One day, Enlil Nasir doesn't show up for work. You ask around and learn he tried to run. He made it to the city gates before being caught by guards. Running from a bond contract is a serious crime. He's brought before a temple court, where a priest serves as judge. The verdict is swift. His bond period is doubled, and he's reassigned to the quarries. You never see him again. You hear later that he died within 3 months. The quarries are death sentences. Everyone knows it, but the law is clear. Bonded workers are property, running is theft, and theft is punished severely. The system protects itself. This incident changes something in you. The last remnant of hope dies. You stop thinking about freedom or justice or change. You just focus on surviving day to day, on completing your bond period, on seeing your sister grow up. Your goals shrink to the smallest possible scale because anything larger feels impossible. You become what the system wants, compliant, obedient, and broken. It's the only way to endure. Fighting gets you killed. Hoping gets you crushed. So you stop doing both. You become a tool, a thing. You save your humanity for the quiet moments when no one's watching, and even then, you're not sure how much of it remains. In your final year of service, the merchant decides to sell your contract. You're being transferred to another household, a temple administrator who needs workers for his estate. The merchant makes a small profit on the sale. You have no say in the matter. The clay tablet that binds you is simply transferred to a new owner. You don't even get to say goodbye to your mother and sister properly. You're moved to the new household within a day. They'll remain with the merchant, at least until your sister is old enough to work. Then she'll likely be bonded out as well. The cycle continues. Generation after generation, trapped in the same system. The temple administrator is harsher than the merchant. He runs his household like a military barracks. Strict schedules, harsh punishments for minor infractions, constant surveillance. You're worked from before dawn until after dark. The food is minimal. The sleeping quarters are cramped. It's like being back at the work sites, except you're trapped inside a household instead of outdoors. The administrator justifies everything with religious language. Discipline pleases the gods. Hard work honors the Anunnaki. Obedience reflects divine order. You've heard it all before. It's the same script, endlessly repeated, used to rationalize endless cruelty. One night, you're so exhausted that you fall asleep during evening prayers. The administrator notices. The next morning, you're beaten in front of the other servants as a lesson. Disrespect to the gods cannot be tolerated, he says. The beating is methodical and severe. Afterward, you're expected to continue working as normal. No time to recover. No sympathy. Just the expectation that you'll endure and keep going. And you do, because you have no choice. Because stopping means death. Because the system has been perfected over centuries to extract maximum labor while providing minimum sustenance. And it works. It always works. Your bond period finally ends in your 5th year. You're released from service with nothing but the clothes you're wearing and a small ration of grain. No payment for your years of labor. No compensation for what was taken from you. Just freedom, if you can call it that. You're free to starve, free to be conscripted again, free to fall into debt and be bonded once more. The system has released you only because extracting more would cost more than you're worth. You've been used up, worn down, and spat out. You're 30 years old, and you feel 60. Your body is broken. Your spirit is hollow, but you're alive. Somehow, impossibly, you're still alive. You try to find your mother and sister. You learn they've moved to a different district. Your sister has been bonded to a weaver's household. Your mother is still working as a servant. You find them eventually, in a tiny room in a crumbling building. The reunion is bittersweet. You're together again, but you're all so damaged. Your sister is 15 now, thin and quiet, with the same dead look in her eyes that you see in your own reflection. Your mother is bent and grey, decades older than her years. You've all survived. But at what cost? What's left of the people you were before this began? With no money and no prospects, you take the only work available, day labour. You join the masses who gather at dawn near the temple district, hoping to be selected for a day's work. Sometimes you're chosen, sometimes not. When you work, you earn barely enough to buy food for that day. When you don't, you go hungry. It's an existence, not a life. You're living day to day, meal to meal, with no security and no future. And you're one of thousands doing exactly the same thing. The system has created a permanent underclass of desperate workers, always available, always expendable. It's by design. Desperation ensures compliance. One day, you're selected for work at a construction site. It's a new palace for a high priest. As you haul stones, you realize you're back where you started. The work is the same. The overseers are the same. The exhaustion is the same. Nothing has changed. 5 years of bonded service. 5 years of your life traded for your family's survival, and you're right back in the same hell. The realization hits you like a physical blow. There is no escape. There is no path forward. The system is a closed loop. and you're trapped inside it forever. That night, you sit with your mother and sister in their cramped room. None of you speak much anymore. There's too much pain, too much exhaustion. Words feel inadequate. Your sister mentions that her bond period will end in 2 years. She wants to know what happens after. You want to tell her something hopeful, that freedom means something, that life gets better. But you can't lie to her. You tell her the truth. Freedom in Sumer just means a different kind of prison. The walls are invisible, but they're still there. Built from poverty, enforced by hunger, justified by the gods. Weeks pass in this new routine. Every morning, the competition for day labor. Every evening, the struggle to afford food. Your body is wearing out. Old injuries from years of hard labor are catching up with you. Your back spasms regularly. Your hands shake. You're developing the same cough your father had. You know what it means. You're dying slowly, ground down by a lifetime of exploitation. And when you die, you'll be thrown in the same communal pit as your father. No marker, no memory. Just another body in the foundation of civilization. One morning, you're not selected for work. Neither is anyone in your row. The overseer has enough laborers already. You wander through the city, trying to find any opportunity. There's nothing. By midday, you're weak with hunger. You haven't eaten in 2 days. Desperation drives you to the temple district. You see offerings being brought in bread, beer, dried fruit, food for the gods, food that will sit on altars until it rots or is consumed by priests. And you're starving. The injustice of it is overwhelming, but the guards are everywhere. Stealing from the temple means death, so you walk away, stomach cramping, while abundance rots behind temple walls. That night, you make a decision. You're going to try to leave leave the city-state entirely. Maybe there are places beyond Sumer where life is different, where the gods don't demand so much, where people are valued as something other than resources. It's a desperate fantasy, but it's all you have left. You tell your mother and sister. Your mother begs you not to go. Without you, they'll have nothing, but you're not helping them anyway. You can barely feed yourself. Maybe if you find something better, you can send for them. It's a thin hope, but it's hope. You leave before dawn, slipping out of the city while the gates are still quiet. You have no plan, no supplies, just a desperate need to escape. You walk south, following the Euphrates. The landscape is flat and barren. The sun rises and beats down mercilessly. By midday, you're regretting this decision. But you keep walking. What else can you do? Behind you is certain death. Ahead is at least possibility. Hours pass, your water runs out, your legs are shaking. You see other travellers on the road occasionally, but you avoid them, trust no one. That's the rule you've learned. By evening, you're barely conscious. You haven't eaten in 3 days. You've been walking for hours in the sun. Your body is shutting down. You collapse near the riverbank, too weak to go further. This is it, you think. This is where it ends. Not in the city, but in the desert, alone. At least it's quiet. At least there are no overseers, no priests, no endless demands. You close your eyes and wait for the end. But the end doesn't come, not yet. You wake hours later, somehow still alive. The river is nearby. You drag yourself to it and drink. The water gives you just enough strength to continue. You stand, unsteady, and keep walking. Always walking. Days blur together. You're in a fugue state, moving on instinct alone. You find a village, eventually not Sumerian, but something else. The people there speak a dialect you barely understand. They're farmers, poor, like everyone you've known, but they feed you, give you a place to sleep. You don't know why. Maybe they see someone even more desperate than they are. Maybe they're just kind. Whatever the reason, you stay. They put you to work in their fields. It's hard labor, but different from the city. There are no quotas, no overseers, no theology justifying your exploitation. You're just working, contributing. It almost feels human, but the peace doesn't last. A month after you arrive, tax collectors from come to the village. They're collecting tribute for the temple. The villagers don't have enough. The harvest was poor. The collectors don't care. They take what they want by force. Anyone who resists is beaten. One old farmer tries to protect his grain stores. The collectors kill him in front of his family. You watch this happen and realize the truth. There is no escape. Suma's reach extends everywhere. The temple's authority is absolute. Even here, hundreds of miles from the city, the system still functions, still extracts, still destroys. The tax collectors notice you. They ask questions. Where are you from? Why are you here? You lie, saying you're from a different village, that you came here to marry. They're suspicious but move on. After they leave, the village elder approaches you. He knows you're running from something. He doesn't ask what. Instead, he tells you, staying here puts the village at risk. If discovers they're harboring a runaway, the entire village will be punished. You understand, you have to leave, again. Always running, always displaced, never allowed to simply exist in peace. You walk again, this time with no destination, just away. You spend weeks moving through the countryside, working for food when you can, stealing when you can't. You become a ghost, a wanderer, someone without place or identity. You meet others like you, people fleeing debt, fleeing service, fleeing the crushing weight of Sumerian authority. You form temporary alliances with them, traveling together for safety. But these groups always dissolve. Everyone is too desperate, too damaged, too focused on individual survival. There's no solidarity among the broken, just parallel desperation. Eventually, disease catches up with you. The cough that started months ago has worsened. You're feverish and weak. Your traveling companions abandon you. They can't afford the burden of a sick person. You find yourself in a grove of date palms, unable to go further. You lie down in the shade and feel your body giving up. This is it. For real this time. 30 years old, and you're dying alone in the desert, far from everyone you've ever known. No family to mourn you, no ceremony to mark your passing, just a body returning to dust. You think about your life, about everything you endured, everything you lost, and you wonder, what was it all for? In your final moments, you think about the ziggurat, that massive structure rising from the desert, built brick by thousands of hands like yours. You helped build it. Your sweat, your blood, your suffering went into those walls, but you'll never be remembered. Your name isn't recorded in any clay tablet. Your contribution isn't acknowledged by any priest. You're invisible. You always were. The ziggurat stands as a monument to the gods, to the king, to the divine order. But it's really a monument to power, to the ability of a few to compel the many, to the perfection of a system that extracts everything and gives nothing back. Your life was the price of that monument, and you're just one of thousands who paid. As consciousness fades, you have a final thought. The Anunnaki, the gods, who supposedly created humanity to serve them, maybe they were real in a way, not as beings from the sky, but as a metaphor. The idea of Anunnaki justified everything, every cruelty, every exploitation, every death. The mythology became the system became inescapable. Whether the gods were real or not didn't matter. Their existence as an idea was enough to build an empire on human suffering, and that empire still stands, will stand, long after you're gone. Because the fundamental equation never changes. Some people have power, most people don't. The powerful create stories to justify their power, and the powerless have no choice but to live within those stories or die outside them. Power always needs a story. In ancient Sumer, that story was the Anunnaki gods from the heavens who created humans to serve. It didn't matter if it was true. It only mattered that people believed it, or at least couldn't challenge it without being destroyed. That belief built cities, monuments, empires, and it built them on the backs of people who had no choice, no voice, no escape. 5,000 years later, the specific stories have changed, but the pattern remains. Someone always claims authority, divine, natural, inevitable. Someone always benefits while someone else suffers. The names of the gods change, the shape of the temples changes. But the fundamental equation persists. A few rule, many serve, and everyone agrees it must be this way because the story says so. The body remembers what the story denies. The exhaustion, the hunger, the grinding daily diminishment of everything that makes us human. Ancient Sumer wasn't the birth of civilization. It was the perfection of exploitation. And we've been living in its shadow ever since. The ziggurat still stands. Maybe not literally, but metaphorically, it's everywhere. Built brick by brick, life by life. On the promise that suffering has meaning, that sacrifice will be rewarded, that the gods, whatever we call them now, demand it. They don't. They never did. But the system requires us to believe they do. And so we build, and we suffer, and we forget that it was ever any different. That's the real cost of civilization, not the monuments, the forgetting.